Hello, everybody. So, I have a question for you. What is your favorite story in the Bible? Hmm? I know, not easy to answer, right? There are so many. I have quite a few favorites. You probably do too. I was thinking about mine recently and realized that they almost all have to do with accomplishing something seemingly impossible. Some of those are stories of miracles that Jesus and sometimes his disciples performed. I remember as a kid liking stories about miracles, but I never really understood the point. Of course, if Jesus was God in a human body, then Jesus could heal the sick and even bring people back to life. He came back to life himself. But did he perform the miracles just to prove that he was the Son of God in the flesh? I don't know. And another big question that not only kids ask is, why doesn't God just perform zillions of miracles all the time, even today, to heal the sick and feed the hungry? That is a big question, isn't it? And asking it might make you feel kind of smart because nobody seems to have a good answer. It's kind of a gotcha question. But the Bible brings up a couple of points here and there about that. First, we're not supposed to know everything about God. We're humans after all. We are pretty smart, but we're not all knowing, and neither can we ever know everything. So we have to be humble and trust that there is something to discover in the stories about Jesus' miracles. The second point also has to do with being humble. The Bible makes it clear that we're not to tempt God or challenge God. We don't run the world, and we certainly are not in a position to tell God what to do. Anyway, you just don't know enough. Well, like I was saying, lots of good Bible stories have to do with accomplishing seemingly impossible things. One of them, Jesus feeding 5,000 hungry people in one afternoon, inspired me to write down a story of my own. Well, it's generally a true story, though I did put a couple of little details I made up. It goes something like this. A few years ago, a 12-year-old girl in East Northport heard that there were hundreds of people that lived nearby who didn't have enough money to feed their families each week. She was upset by this and asked her parents why God would let such a thing happen. The parents were honest. They said they didn't know. But then, like parents and teachers tend to do, annoyingly sometimes, they answered the question with a question. Why are you letting such a thing happen if you are upset about it? Well, what can I do about it? She asked a bit defiantly. I only have the food you give me, and I don't have enough allowance to buy anybody more than just a hamburger a week. The parents answered with not a touch of nastiness. You're pretty smart. You'll come up with something. The girl was a bit frustrated, but she took it as a challenge, and she didn't like to back down from challenges. So she slept on it. And maybe it was something she dreamt, I don't know. But the next day she had an epiphany. That's a moment of insight about something really important. There are hundreds of people in my town that go hungry each week, yeah, but there are many more hundreds that don't, and they have enough money for food and for all kinds of things they don't really need. Well, the girl wondered if, like her, they were also upset that there were people nearby who had trouble feeding their families enough. Then she wondered, if they are upset, why don't they do something about it? Then she had an aha moment that sprang her into action. Maybe I can challenge them the same way my parents challenged me, she said out loud to herself. And that's just what she did. And what she has been doing each summer for the past 4 years. She gets a bunch of paper bags together, and she writes a note saying who she is and asking for donations of food for the local pantry in Northport. She copies the note and staples copies onto the bags which she leaves at the front door of her neighbors. Then a few days later, she goes by each house and picks up the bags, which had been filled to the brim. And just like that, and because of her caring, her good thinking, and her faith in people, she collects enough to help about 100 families put food on their tables for a week. Each of us, in our small way, can be Jesus' representatives on earth. In fact, that's God's plan, and we are called to play a part. So, what might your part be? It can be small. If all of you play your part, it'll be a big deal.